Hey, what's good, y'all? I'm Kippers, and in this video, we're building the easiest Plankerton endurance ever. The concept of this build is simple, yet brilliant. Suspended drop traps kill all the husks, while smashers and mini-bosses run around aimlessly because they have nothing to attack. The entire build will cost less than 15,000 building mats and 3 to 4 stacks of drop traps depending on your trap durability. We can use tier 1 wood because the builds don't take any damage except for the tornado amp where tier 3 metal is required. Before we jump into building each amplifier, we need to understand how drop traps work to maximize their effectiveness. First, drop traps have a trigger range of 3 tiles high. At that height, the drop trap's carnage is maximized and its attached structure won't take damage from propane explosions on the ground. So as we build the floating structure over spawns and pathing, try to stay 3 tiles high and never go lower than 2 tiles. Second, drop traps are directional. If you look closely at the drop trap, you will see a battery that powers the electromagnet. When placing the drop traps, the battery will be on the left side, which means the husk will get staggered towards your back. So essentially, when you're placing the drop traps, you want to have your back towards the direction you want to stagger the husks. All right, so now let's take a look at the different ways you can perk your drop traps. These traps are going in my alt endurance, who is low level with no trap durability survivors. So we have 3 damage and 2 durability. In my endurance, this would give me about 91 trap uses, which is more than you're going to need. So I would switch this first durability perk to reload speed, and then you could probably get away with less drop traps in your endurance. Keep in mind that traps are capped to power level 116 in Plankerton, so you won't see any difference between a 130 and a 144. And you could probably even get away with 106 traps if you have a bunch of tier 4 materials to burn. Speaking of crafting materials, if you don't have a maxed out drop trap schematic, you can request a crafter on my Discord server as long as you provide the exact crafting materials. We are not a trading server, so Sunbeam won't do, but crafting is free and anybody can register as a crafter and earn reputation. All right, so now let's take a look at the Plankerton map. We've got the Storm Shield and 7 amplifiers. This amp right here could be your B amp, but in my home base, it's actually the A amp. So let's name each amplifier and we can refer to it by that name as we build each one. So of course we have the Storm Shield, and then moving south, you have the South amplifier, then the East amplifier, the Tunnel amplifier, the Southwest amplifier, the Southeast amplifier, and then Far North and Hilltop amplifiers. In this video, which is part 1, we will cover Storm Shield North, East North and East East, Southeast East, and Southeast South, and then finally South amp from the south and from the west. South gets attacked from the west when you don't have the Southwest amp or the Hilltop amp. It can also get attacked from the east if you don't have the Southeast amp. If you don't have that amp, you'll also get attacked from the south on your East amplifier. Now, before we jump into the builds, this whole thing started as an experiment, so it isn't an exact science, right? The idea was to make the simplest, cheapest endurance possible. The builds don't need to be exact, just stay 2 to 3 tiles above spawns and pathings, and maybe you'll find spots where more drop traps are needed, or maybe you need to add extra builds to block off flingers and lobbers. Join in on the experiment and let me know how it goes for you in the comments. This is meant to be a build that everybody can do, and make sure you subscribe for part 2. All right, so I've run the endurance a few times with great success. However, D South on a few times got hit 7 and 8 times, which used all of the drop traps. So we're going to add some extra traps here, but you know what we're going to do is we're going to put some ceiling electric fields because wave 26 hits this south amp with water husks, and the physical damage on the drop traps take a serious damage penalty against elemental husks. We could perk the ceiling electric fields to nature and do extra damage versus water husks, but there are also 2 waves that can randomly hit this amp with all fire husks, and that would be bad for a nature trap. Ceiling electric fields are pretty awesome traps. They target enemies within 3 tiles of the trap, so you can place the traps 1 tile outside the pathing of the husks, and the electric fields will still activate, whereas a drop trap wouldn't. Alright, so that wraps up all the builds for this video. In part 2, we will complete the endurance for my alt, which has the tunnel and hilltop amplifiers, and we'll also look at a home base that has tunnel and southwest, and then finally one that has tunnel and far north. Go ahead and leave a comment if there are other amp locations you'd like to see in the next video. If you like my videos and want to support me, please hit the like button and subscribe. You can also find me live on Twitch Wednesdays through Saturdays at 5 p.m. Pacific time. That's the Llama Reset at twitch.tv/kippersgg. Also, you're welcome to join the Discord server, where we have an incredible community of gamers and even an automated endurance hosting system where you can host and leech endurance rewards. That's it for this video, and as always, GG's.